Hey there, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show, where you're going to have the opportunity to listen to and learn from everyday entrepreneurs.
Okay, well, welcome to the Jeff and Heidi Show. I'm Heidi Anderson here with my co-host, Jeff Heidi, and I am thrilled to introduce to you all today a longtime dear friend of mine and a absolute corporate entity. She's just brilliant when it comes to forming corporate entities, not only forming them, but managing them, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't even know they have to do. So Wendy Byford has been my go-to person for over 10 years now, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to share with you today.
Hi there. Nice to be here.
So Wendy, tell us a little bit more. Like I said, I've known you for 10 years, but I've only known you in the entity formation business. Tell us a little bit about, how you got there.
I actually got there sideways. So I was in corporate America for many years, and I did global business development, traveled all over the world, dealing with our company's largest and in some cases most difficult clients. So it gave me a really good background for understanding how international business worked. And when I left there, I basically took early retirement because I was really a bad employee. I didn't really.
I can relate.
I was a terrible employee. I didn't get bad reviews, because I stood between our managers and the clients who were screaming because they wanted to put a computer system into a war zone, that sort of thing. So they never wanted to get rid of me because I was kind of that buffer. But I really was great at figuring out how to do things that had never been done before. And in a corporate environment, that's a really tenuous position to be in because everybody likes to be part of their tribe. Everybody wants to identify with a particular group. And if you're outside on the fringes, nobody likes that, and particularly if what you do is great and the salespeople love you, which is what happened to my group. So I was a really bad employee in that sense. I really loved figuring out how to do things differently and really wanted to be my own boss, although I didn't recognize that until quite late in the game. So I took early retirement when I had the opportunity and went out to start my own businesses. And one of the things that really intrigued me was basically things that attorneys and paralegals did. Now, I have an undergraduate degree in history. And I missed the lecture where they said that old history students become attorneys. Somehow I just wasn't there for that. And so I didn't realize that this is kind of normal for those of us who are attracted to history. So I went back to school and I got a paralegal certificate and wanted to work in the business environment because as part of my own investing, I had to set up LLCs. And so I went to an attorney, first of all, and said, can you set this up for me? And after a whole lot of money, I got one piece of paper. I said, but don't I get something else? Don't I get an EIN? He said, no, you go online and get that. Okay. Do I get an operating agreement? No, I can write you one, but it's, several $100s more. And I'm like, wait a minute. I paid you a ton of money and I can't even get an operating agreement. So after a while, I'd wrestled him to the floor so that he would give me a template operating agreement that I could then modify for my own use, which was fine. I didn't have a problem with that. But I had a problem with the whole scenario of paying so much money for a single piece of paper that I could have filed myself. I didn't know it there. And not having anything else. And so I thought, okay, well, that wasn't a really good experience. The next LLC I needed, I went to a different company and the experience wasn't that much better. And I thought, I can do this. I can set this stuff up. So I went back and I looked through all my paralegal books and whatnot, and I figured out that for certain states you had to be certified, and started to go through that process. And then really just started to look at the whole environment of setting up entities. And it became clear very quickly that the issue isn't setting up the company, right? I can teach you how to set up your companies in like 15 minutes, right? No problem. It's the whole understanding of how to look after that entity that you've set up. Because just because you have a piece of paper doesn't mean that you are that you're totally protected and nothing's ever going to happen to you. When you go to court, they can't touch you. I know that people like to share that myth. But the thing is that if you've got an entity, you need to look after it. There are certain things that you need to do to maintain those protections and those wonderful tax benefits that you get. And nobody knows how to do that. And that's what really attracted me to this whole area, was the idea that we could educate people on how to do this. We could answer questions for them in a general manner. I'm not an attorney and I do not give legal advice. So if you want me to draw you up a map for your particular situation, we're not going to do that. We're going to say, these are the options that you have. These are the pros and cons of some of those options. And you might want to talk this over with your family attorney. So educating people on what to do after they had the entity was what really drew me into this area. And we've just had a wonderful time over the past 15 years doing that.
That's awesome. And it's actually such a needed service. And I think something that I've been talking a lot about with clients and stuff is we're going to see a big shift in the next little bit here. And I think there's going to be some more entrepreneurs, more businesses, those sort of things. And people need to know this stuff. So I think the timing on this is great. And I guess there's a few things. If someone's listening to this and they're looking, okay, I'm going to start a business.
Right.
And that's step one. They just decided, now what? And it's really, where do I go from here? So a couple things I'd like to ask. One, for someone that's looking at that, can you explain, you could probably go into this all day, but kind of explain the difference and the benefits between partnerships, LLC, corporations. Can you kind of just touch on that without, like I said, you could probably talk about it all day long, I understand, but just the high level view of it.
Okay. So if you're looking at setting up a company and you're trying to decide what to do, there are some things that you need to kind of slice and dice to kind of figure out what's a good option. Okay. Corporations have been around forever and have a lot of case history behind them. Long time ago in Europe, people didn't want to be responsible for the lives of the sailors that were being lost at sea when they sent out these sailing ships to find treasures. And so they formed these associations that became corporations. And so corporations have been around for a very long time, and they're very formal. So there are things that you have to do, and if you don't, it really damages the protection of the corporation. There are some other things about corporation that make them better or worse for what you're doing. But in some states, depending upon what you're doing, you may not have a choice as to whether you're a corporation or you're any other type of entity. So for example, if you're in the medical field in California, you don't get a choice. You have to be a corporation, and probably a professional corporation. In some other instances, you have the same thing where if you're licensed, the licensing board has determined that you have to be a corporation instead of an LLC. So when you're starting your business, the first thing to look at is, am I licensed? And if I am, I need to go back to my licensing board and find out what type of entity in my state I'm allowed to be. Okay, so that's kind of the first slice. The next slice is, okay, I want to start a business and I'm not licensed. I'm not in an area that has to be licensed. So now what can I look at? Do I want to be a corporation or I want to be an LLC? And some of that is going to depend upon what you plan to do in the future. If you're starting a business that you plan to take to IPO, okay, this is going to become a public company and you really are planning to grow this thing big.
Just in case any listeners, IPO is initial public offering, taking it public, just in case.
Yes, no, understand. So you're going to keep this thing public. You're going to become General Motors, right?
Yeah.
Then you're probably going to set up a corporation so that you can have shareholders, and you're going to probably set it up in a state like Delaware where all of the big corporations are set up. But let's say that you're a little guy like us, right? So I don't know about you, but I'm not planning on building General Motors anytime soon. And the company that we run isn't licensed in that regard. Some people have to have certifications, but it's not licensed. It's not like being in the medical profession. It's not like being in the legal profession. So I can make some choices then about whether I want to be a corporation or I want to be an LLC. So I'm going to take a step back now and say, all right, let's see what we want to do. Am I going to take investment capital? Okay. Am I going to just have friends and family lend me some money? Okay. Am I going to have partners? Am I going to want to grow slowly so that the tax benefits of being taxed under something called subchapter S or being a C Corp doesn't really help me a lot right now. I'd rather just have the money so that I can write a check to myself and that's good. And so the answers to some of these questions is going to determine, okay, am I leaning to a corporation or am I going to lean to an LLC? The other question you're going to ask is, when I make all this money from this business I'm putting together, what am I going to do with the money? Right? So if I'm going to invest in real estate and I'm going to flip houses, okay, and I need some of that money to live on and to pay off debt and do a bunch of other things, then it might be better for me to have that money flow down to me, which means that I'm probably talking about an LLC or an S Corp, which are flow downs. But if I want to take that money and buy an apartment building, then I'm rolling that money, I'm just keeping it going, and I want the lowest possible tax rate so that I can take the most money and put it into my apartment building. Well, then something like a C corporation is going to be better because I'm paying that low corporate tax rate. And then I can lend the money from the corporation to an LLC that will buy the apartment building. So depending upon what you're doing, how fast you're going to be growing, where your capital is coming from, whether it's just you or a bunch of partners, and what you're going to do with the money, all of those things kind of go into a mix, and then you kind of shake it all up and throw the dice, and out comes what you should be doing.
See, I told you she's a wizard. I mean, I've looked come to her over the years with these crazy things, and she's like, well, you could do that, but are you sure you want to? And I just love it. But I know, like, when I first created my first corporation, unfortunately, it was 10 years before I met Wendy. I once again, expensive attorney, and there he said, basically, an LLC is for holding property, and a C Corp, taxes and S Corp is the best way if you're going to have a business where it's just going to be an operating business, an ongoing, business. And that's how he helped me make that decision. And I ended up with a C Corp, taxes and S Corp. But I think, has that changed over time, or was it even different then and I just didn't get good information?
Well, because it was a long time ago, a lot of attorneys kind of lean towards having a corporation for a business. And that was fine because that was what they were taught in school. And a lot of attorneys really wanted the cachet of a corporation because a lot of times people were less inclined to sue a corporation, more inclined to sue an LLC. And let's face it, LLCs have only been around since 1977. I know what you're thinking. 1977 wasn't that long ago, right? But we're old. There's probably people listening to this going, my God, I wasn't even born in 1977. Right? So, but in the legal world, 1977 wasn't that long ago when you're looking at that hundreds of years of history for corporations. And so what a lot of attorneys did, excuse me, is telling me that I'm supposed to be here.
Is that?
I don't know why it's doing that.
Is that is that yours? I was
yeah, no, that's
not
mine.
mine.
That's mine telling me I'm supposed to be here. And so a lot of attorneys would say, well, corporations are for business and LLCs are for rental real estate. No problem. But over the years, the laws surrounding LLCs have become a lot stronger. And LLCs are easier to run. And I don't think anybody is going to deny that. Now, there are certain things that we tell you to do to make sure that you maintain your protections and your tax benefits. But overall, it's easier to run. Corporations have officers and directors and shareholders, and you have to know what hat you're wearing when you run all these meetings, and you have to have your annual meetings, and they have to be written up a certain way. With an LLC, it's not the same thing. You have managers and you have members, and it's not too hard to figure out what you're doing. So LLCs have come into favor a lot over the last, I'm going to say maybe 20 years.
Probably right after I formed my C Corp.
Probably. And so, I mean, I've heard attorneys say, and I won't say who the names are, but I've heard attorneys say that, you know, if you're not setting people up in an LLC, then you're setting yourself up for malpractice. Now, personally, I don't believe that. I think that's a little extreme. However, there are some really nice benefits to LLCs that you don't get with corporations. And so the decision now isn't as cut and dried as perhaps it was 30 years ago, because the laws for LLCs have become a lot stronger, a lot better. And of course, you know that Nevada is a great place for that. Wyoming is a great place for that. And there are many other states that have really good, solid laws now for LLCs.
So maybe touch on that a little bit too. You talked about setting up corporations in Delaware, you know, setting things up in Nevada or whatever. Can you explain a little bit what the reasoning for that is?
Okay, well, my take on it, and attorneys feel free to tell me I'm out of my mind, is that you really set up a business in the state where you're planning to do that business. Now, if you're planning, though, to have a lot of shareholders that are scattered all over the place, you're planning to take your company public, then the laws that are in Delaware really favor large corporations. And so even a company like Hewlett-Packard, which I think was originally set up in California, actually moved over to Delaware. So Delaware is kind of the quintessential state where you form large corporations that are going to, particularly if they're going to be taken public. Nevada seems to be, or has been for many years, the state where if you have an LLC that you want really good protections with, that's the state where you set up your LLC. Now, Wyoming actually made a concerted effort to change their laws to be the Nevada for LLCs. And so right now you've got people saying, no, it's got to be Nevada, and people say, no, it's got to be Wyoming. And it's kind of like a religious war, right? You kind of pick your poison. However, if you are setting up an LLC and your business is, I don't know, flipping houses, well, then you need to decide where you're actually going to be doing the business. And if you're going to be doing the business in several states, you may want to set up your business where you are, where you're physically located when you go out online and start looking for properties. And then if you find a bunch of properties that you're going to buy and flip, then you can always register that LLC into those states. And when you stop doing business there, withdraw that registration for that state. So if you're a small business, like most of us are, setting up where you're located is usually where you're going to start. Now, if you're doing something where you're going to get a little bit more complicated and you really want the protections for that business, let's say, for example, that you're selling information products online or something like that, then you can always do something like set up your business that has the websites and sells the information products and whatnot in a state like Nevada, where the laws are very strong, and at least I believe to date, there is no taxes on downloadable products. And then where you're sitting, let's say you're sitting over in Arizona like you guys are, you can always set up an LLC or a corporation taxed under subchapter S, you get the choice. And then you can always bill that other company for the time that you spend working on that website or putting up those products, or whatever it is. And so you can have different tiers of things and with companies in different places, depending upon where you want your protections and what it is that you're actually doing. Does that make sense?
And
Yes.
of
Yeah.
course, within all of this, you have to keep track of all that for one
Yes,
thing.
you do.
But there are also some rules, and I can't remember, like S corps can't own LLCs or vice versa. I can't remember what those are. Do you?
Well, um, there was a time when LLCs were simply flow-throughs. You were either taxed as a sole proprietor for a single member LLC, or you were taxed as a partnership for a multiple member LLC. But then the IRS adopted the check the box rules, which basically said, the IRS threw up their hands and said, look, the tax code was written before LLCs were ever invented. We don't know what you want to do with this stuff, so you just tell us. So yeah, I mean, poor guys were beaten down to a pulp and finally just gave up. And so when your LLC is born, if you like, it's born as a single member or a multiple member. And normally, if you do nothing, you're going to be taxed either as a sole proprietor or taxed as a partnership. But with an LLC, you can choose if you want to change that tax election to a subchapter S, like you have for your corporation, or to a chapter C. So you don't have to now decide if you want to be a corporation or an LLC based upon taxes. With your LLC, you can decide. And what it does is something that is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It means that people who are starting out can set up their LLC. And then when they get to a point where a subchapter S tax election would be worthwhile for them, they can change the way that they're taxed, and they don't have to become a corporation to do it. They can stay an LLC. So the only thing that changes is the tax election, not the entity. It's brilliant.
That is that, and that actually, I wasn't aware of those changes, because I always looked at it as, like you were saying, what it used to be, a flow through. So no, those are definitely some advantages. Now, I want to ask one other thing without having you give away all your information. The question: will your LLC be exposed during an audit or a lawsuit? You know why I'm saying without giving away, and I want to comment on that in a minute. But just what are some of the things that, because like you were saying earlier, a lot of people will just form their company and think, okay, I'm done, I'm protected. So what are some points, and then we can tell people where to go to find out the rest of the answer.
Right. Well, I actually put together a little report that was the 7 LLC mistakes that most entrepreneurs make. Because when people set up their LLCs, often they're told, okay, you don't have to do anything. And so they take all the documentation, they got it and they throw it in a drawer somewhere and say, okay, I'm done, right? I'm protected. I did what I was supposed to do. Now let me get back to my business. And believe me, I get it. All of us are really busy entrepreneurs. And the last thing we want to do is spend a ton of time on paperwork. However, there are some things that you need to put in place so that you don't inadvertently make mistakes that are going to harm you if you end up in a lawsuit or you're audited. Things that are very simple to keep you from doing things like commingling your funds or representing yourself incorrectly. Most people don't realize that if they go into a situation where they have a contract and the contract is in their name and they sign it in their name and they say, okay, well, this is for a business that I'm putting in an LLC. Well, that's fine, except you signed the contract under your name, so you are now personally liable. So there's all of these things that people do without thinking. They don't really understand the importance of doing things correctly or putting systems in place to do things correctly. And the joy of this is that A, these systems are not complicated, and B, you can teach your virtual assistant how to do these things. You don't have to do them yourself. So now I can hear all of the business owners going, oh, thank God for that, right? Because what entrepreneur in his right mind, except for me, really, is going to do paperwork, right? I mean, nobody, absolutely
Right.
nobody. My husband, when we started our businesses, looked at me and said, don't ever make me secretary. Just don't do it. Because nothing is ever going to get done. And it's true. I mean, most entrepreneurs are out the gate offering whatever it is that they have to offer to the world, whatever their brilliance is that they want to share. And nobody's thinking, okay, so what am I going to do with these receipts? Right? How are my my financials going to be set up? What am I going to call myself? I mean, just all of these things that need to be put in place are the last thing that anybody wants to do. But the problem is that if you go to court and the opposing attorney believes that there's any chance that he can get to your personal assets, he's going to try everything he can to do it, because that's what he needs to do for his client, right? If his client is out there suing you and they don't want to settle for whatever your business insurance is willing to pay, and they decide to take you to court, he's going after everything that you own. And so what he wants to do is to take that LLC box that you've got, that your business is in, and punch a hole through it so that he can get from your business to your personal assets and get everything. And the easiest way for him to do that is to show the court that you're not acting like the manager of a professional business. You're acting like a sole proprietor, doing whatever they want to do, making whatever decisions they want to make, as if the LLC did not exist. And if the LLC did not exist and you truly were a sole proprietor, everything you own is at risk in a lawsuit. So, Your Honor, he's acting as if the LLC doesn't exist. Let's make it so the LLC doesn't exist. If I win, I want everything. So there are things that you need to do to put in place. All kinds, and it's not all kinds, it's systems that when you go to court, you can show the court that you are acting like a professional manager of a professional organization, of a business, and that you're not acting willy-nilly just like any sole proprietor. And so that means that when you walk into court and you've got a spreadsheet in one hand and a box of receipts in the other, that's not going to look very good. When you walk in with your income statement and your balance sheet and your other documents that show that you have a good financial system and you are recording all of your income and expenses appropriately, not you, your bookkeeper, okay? It's not you, it's your bookkeeper.
Sometimes it's us.
If you're a professional bookkeeper, oh, that's off. Otherwise, right? How much is your time worth and how much are you paying your bookkeeper? Come on, guys. So also your company record book with all of your decisions documented. Come on, if you were in corporate America, you would be documenting everything 9 ways to Sunday. This isn't difficult, and you can teach an admin to do this. So all of these decisions are documented, and you look like the professional manager of a company. And you are always recording yourself as the manager of the company, not as just your name. And all of these things, you're not commingling funds. You're doing things that any professional manager would do. Like if you're in corporate America and you've got a corporate credit card, do you ever put your date night with your spouse on that card?
Or your groceries?
No.
Right? I mean, not if you want to stay employed, right? So you don't do it when you own the company. They're just some common sense things that people don't think about. All the time we get, new entrepreneurs who say, look, my company ran out of money, so I just paid this bill. Okay, you've now commingled your funds and you have given an opposing attorney the right to go now and start looking for other things that prove that you're acting like a sole proprietor. So there are easy things that you can do, little systems that you set up in place that you can have a virtual assistant run that will keep you squeaky clean. So if you go to court, they can't pierce that corporate veil. And if you're audited by the IRS will come back and say, okay, good job. Now, we've been audited by the state, not by the IRS, and that's not an invitation, IRS. We've been audited by the state, and lo and behold, when they finished, they said, we actually owe you a little bit of money. I'm like, audits can be good.
Well,
so,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, okay, really quickly. If somebody's listening to this and they've had a corporation for a while and they haven't been doing all this, is there a catch-up thing they can do?
Yeah, they can. You can catch up. And actually, I just did some free training on our Facebook group, Bizengaged for Entrepreneurs with LLCs. And in it, we've actually showed people how to catch up their minutes. So there is a template there for catch up, and you just kind of bullet point all of the decisions that you made, and you basically do one a year. So if you need to go back 3 years, then you'd have different pages, kind of one per year, where you document your decisions. You then want to get a professional bookkeeper to work with you to figure out whether or not you've commingled funds. And if by chance you have a situation where your company just ran out of money and you need to pay the bills, well, then what you do is make a loan to your company. You set it up on the books as a loan. And then the company pays the bills out of its normal bank account because you lent that money. And when the company starts making money again, it pays you back the loan with interest. Yes, the IRS is going to demand interest at whatever the rate of interest is these days. What are we above 1%?
I don't think so.
So yeah, I mean, these are not difficult things to do. They're very simple things to do. But if you need to get caught up, then there's some things you're going to need to look at. The same as if we're going to look at it for a client, we have a whole checklist of things that we go through. Excuse me.
So
this is about, and it is really dry.
That's okay.
It's allergy season too.
Yeah, it is.
Go ahead, Jeff.
We need to wrap up this in just a minute here, but I do have a couple things I'm mostly because I've got clients that I've talked to that these are going to answer questions for them and stuff. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see more people looking at LLCs and corps and stuff in the next little bit, I think. Someone that's just wanting to start a business right now, and they're looking at, they need them and a partner or something, they're going to set up an LLC. Uh-huh. To do it right, what can they expect it's going to cost them?
Wow, that's a $64,000 question. And no, it's not $64,000.
And I guess I ask you that because when you talked about setting up your first one, you're talking about, you put out all this money and you didn't get the things that you thought you were going to. And so just to give I know it can't be a real answer, but a ballpark.
So it really, I hate to sound like an economist, but it really depends. It depends who you go to and what they do. So if you go to an online company, then you're going to pay a few $100s. So under $1,000, a few $100, and they'll ask you, excuse me. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
They're going to ask you, do you want an EIN? Do you want an operating agreement? Do you want us to hire a registered agent? All those things. And of course, as you say yes, the price goes up. If you go to an attorney and you are having a real conversation about what it is that you're planning to do and what this structure should look like, and you have a custom operating agreement done for you and your partner, then you're going to pay, a couple of $1,000s to get that done. So it really depends upon what level of expertise you're looking for.
Okay. Now that makes sense. And so I guess also just to kind of explain what you do you actually set up LLCs for people, or are you advising, or what is it like? What are you offering to clients?
We do set up LLCs as legal document preparers. So I'm not going to sit down and say, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this. We discuss, here are your options. What would you like to do? Okay. Excellent. And the operating agreement that we have is semi-customized. So it's a template that, has your name written in and a bunch of other things, but the terms in there are a template, and you might want to have your attorney look at it and make whatever adjustments you want. We have had clients do that in the past where they've taken the operating agreement to their attorney, and the attorney's asked for like 2 or 3 changes, and that's it, which is really amazing to me, that they don't make more changes, because it says it must be a pretty solid operating agreement. So we file the documents with the state, we get the company, the federal tax ID, we prepare the company record book and get that out, and then we provide an electronic version of the operating agreement that you can sign online and use to open up your bank account while you're waiting for your hard copy book to arrive. And then we give you 6 months of support, so you can ask questions, you can look at all of the tools and things that we have. For example, if you want to write off, expense any assets that you buy that are less than $2,500 in a year, rather than amortizing it a little bit at a time over a number of years, the IRS expects you to have a resolution for that. We put that resolution into the tools section. So there's lots of stuff in there for you to use, videos to watch, interviews to watch, to help you learn how to look after your company. And then if you don't understand something for 6 months, you can just ask us questions and we're happy to answer them. Excellent. And can you do it with someone in any state, or are you? Yes. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, this has been awesome. And I already know a few people I'm going to be
telling them they need to listen to this, because you've given some great information that's going to be useful for them. But I want you to also share where people can find you. And I guess you can share why you laughed when I said, will your LLC be exposed during an auditor lawsuit?
Well, we typically have people pick up a free report that's on the website. Website is www.bizengaged, B as in Bravo, I, Z as in Zebra, E-N like November, G-A-G-E-D.com, Bizengaged. You can go in there and you can give us your email address, and we'll email you out this report. And you can look through and just see, here are 7 things that people commonly do that you don't want to do in your business. So set up your systems to take care of that. In fact, we're actually going to be creating a course on things that you need to do to set up your systems properly when you first set up your LLC. So they can go there and get that. And then they can always just get in touch with us. The name of the company that we use for setting up the LLCs is Your Entity Solution, but they can get hold of us through Bizengaged. My email is wendy@bizengaged.com. You can always email me and say, hey, can we chat? Happy to do that for a limited amount of time. I'm not going to spend 2 hours on the phone. But a lot of times people will just call up and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And I'm happy to chat with you just to, kind of get your mind in the right place. And then you can decide what you want to do going forward. So happy to see you guys. Any of your clients, of course, are welcome to come over. You can always do an introduction through email with your clients, and I'm happy to chat with them, whatever works for you guys.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And yeah, go to Bizengage, get that report. It's just going to add to all the information that's been offered here. And I need to compliment you too. I'm actually, with seeing where some of these trends and stuff, one of the things I've been working with people on is their websites and their functionality, and really what are they doing. And a lot of the things that I'm helping people, I'm doing the same as what you were just mentioning. I'm putting it into a program right now so I can offer that. And a lot of the things that I'm offering to people, how to fix their websites, yours is spot on. It's very good. It's a squeeze page with the specific information, the right titles, everything. It's perfect. So when I opened that, I was like, hey, this is slick. This is really good.
She's becoming a marketing expert too. She sends out fabulous emails. Once you start getting her emails, it's like reading a story, and she makes something that could be a little dry, a little more entertaining.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you. If people already have their LLCs and they are trying to get caught up or to learn, then absolutely come to the Facebook page, Bizengaged for Entrepreneurs with LLCs, and we'll be happy to work with you there. You can ask questions, join discussions. In the unit sections, we have free training, so come on over.
Excellent. And I'll make sure all these links are in the show notes too, so that people can find them there as well. But thank you. I appreciate all the information you've shared. It's been great value, and I know our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of it. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. It's great to see you.
Thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Thanks.